Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Jay from Pile Law. I've spoken to probably a few of you, whether it's through email or phone, but hopefully you're now able to put a face to my name. I'd like to welcome you guys to our first of many webinars, and this one, our hot topic, is demystifying long-term care and Medicaid planning. Um, just to let you know, this is, like I said, this is the first of many, and we want to just say thank you first for joining. Please forgive me. This is like the first one, so I may be a little up and down, but hopefully that you are able to pull away some great information from our attorney, and hopefully we see you at the next one, and just continue to create this bond with our firm and you guys as our clients or potential clients, and make it a great day. So I'm going to give me a moment here, let you guys know that also, like I said, this is the first of many, and if you have any ideas or if you have any questions or anything, you can always drop it in our Q&A, and I'll get to it before the end of the webinar. But just to let you know, the purpose of this is not only to create engagement between us and our community, but it's also to just let you guys know what are the hot topics that are out there for, elderly care or estate planning or estate administration, as well as things to just protect your legacy, you as our clients or potential clients. Alrighty? So with that being said, I want to introduce who our speaker is. Our speaker is attorney Nigo Pyle, and he is the founder and managing attorney for Pyle Law Firm. Just a little bit about Nigo is that he received his JD from Temple University Beasley School of Law, and his BA in philosophy from Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut. Prior to law school, Nigo was selected by the Council on Legal Education Opportunity to be a Thurgood Marshall Fellow during the summer of '95 at the University of Pittsburgh School of Law. And today, as you know, Nigo provides legal counsel for many clients throughout Pennsylvania and New Jersey, and primarily matters relative to estate planning, elder law, special needs planning, Medicaid planning, and estate administration and real estate law. All right. And before I get over to Nigo, just wanted to let you know, I want you guys to get the best out of this webinar. So the best thing for top 3 tips. 1, take some notes, jot them down, write it down, let us know. And any takeaways that you can give to your friends and family moving forward. Number 2, like I said, ask questions. We have a Q&A there. Drop it in there. I'll definitely touch it before the end of the webinar. And even if you have any other questions, you're always available to email us. My email and everything could be provided at the end as well. And last but not least, rewatch. I know everyone might not be able to get on it today. If you even have to leave early, because I understand life kicks in. It's the evening time. People come home from work. Just know that the replay of this webinar will be sent to your email, so no worries on that. Okay, and next, we're going to go into our first part, which is introduction to long-term care planning and Medicaid. And Nigo, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you, Jay. How do I sound, Jay? Am I good?
You sound perfect.
All right, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, everyone, for attending our presentation today, our webinar, Introduction to Long-Term Care and Medicaid Planning. This is an important topic. We get a lot of questions about this topic from clients and people that call into our office. So let's just jump right into it. Next slide, Jay, please. So what is long-term care and who is eligible? Long-term care, and let me share this stat with you, right? As you can see the stat on the webinar, nearly 70% of people over the age of 65 will require some form of long-term care during their lifetime. I'm going to repeat that because that's a striking number. Nearly 70% of people over the age of 65 will require some form of long-term care during their lifetime. So long-term care is the planning that we do in this office for individuals who will need some assistance with their activities of daily living. So activities of daily living include bathing, toileting, getting yourself dressed, eating, preparing your meals, all those things that you do normally right now today. If in the future your health declines and you're unable to manage those activities, then you're going to need some assistance. And that assistance can come in a nursing home, or it can happen at home in your own community. And so it's important that we understand what long-term care means, and we take the proactive steps to plan for how we're going to pay for it, because with that additional care, there is a cost associated with that. And that's a big issue that we have to address. How are we going to pay for it? All right. And who is eligible? Any individual that needs assistance with any of those activities of daily living that I mentioned: cooking, eating, going to the bathroom, getting dressed, getting out of bed. Those are individuals who would be eligible to receive the assistance of a caretaker through long-term care. Next slide, please, Jay. And so one of the important things about long-term care is making sure that we plan. We start early and we understand what we need to do, right? So when you come into our office, one of the first things that we'll do is we'll have you sit down with an attorney. If you sit down with me, we will have a strategy session, right? And in that strategy session, I want to learn as much about you as possible. I want to learn about your health history. I want to learn about your family history. I want to learn about your finances, right? Because all those things matter when we start to talk about how are we going to plan for long-term care and how are we going to pay for it, right? And oftentimes a person, an older person who is coming in may come in with their spouse, or they may come in with a child, one of their adult children. And it's important that you have a good support network because the people that support you are going to be the ones that are going to do the heavy lifting, right? Navigating you through the planning that we're going to do for you, but also are going to be the ones that are going to make sure that either you're getting care in a nursing home or you're getting care at home. And they're going to make sure that you are comfortable as can be. Next slide, please.
And just to let you guys know, we did publish a poll, and it'd be nice if everyone went ahead and gave that just a quick little answer on: have you started planning for you or your loved one's long-term care needs? Let us know if you have. I mean, I believe you guys should be seeing it now because someone did vote. Alrighty.
Yeah, if you see the poll and you had an opportunity to fill out the poll, just in the chat, just write.
All right.
Are we seeing that in the chat?
Yeah, I'm seeing some results now, and I'll just give it about 20 more seconds just to see if we got any more answers. And we're getting them. 62% filled it out already, so we're almost there.
And just, I mean, just, take a mental note of that stat, that we have up on the screen. And I'm going to say one more time, nearly 70% of people over the age of 65 will require some form of long-term care during their lifetime. All right.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and publish our results now. And there you go. Is everyone seeing it?
All right. So looking at the poll, have you started planning for your you or a loved one's long-term care needs. 11% said, yes, I've gotten professional advice. And we have 33% saying, yes, I've tried figuring it out on my own. And we have 33% not yet, but I'm planning to. And then 22%, no, I don't know where to start. All right. So for the majority of people, about 89% of individuals, this is a great opportunity for you to learn where to start and to get some great information on what to do. Okay. So, all right. Thanks for the poll results, Jay, and we can go to the next slide.
You guys should be good to go.
Yep, and that's the types of long-term care services. So now that we talked about what long-term care services looks like, assistance with your activities of daily living because of decline in health, the places that you can get assistance with your long-term care services include getting care at your home. And that means that you would get caretakers to come into your home. And we want to make sure before we do that, that your home is safe, right? That it's safe to have individuals come in, that you're able to ambulate, get around comfortably in your home. If you're in a wheelchair, we want to make sure that the doorways are widened so that your wheelchair can get in and out of the doorway entries. And if you have limited mobility, we want to make sure that on one level, you know, whether it's your first floor or some main level, that you have all the care that you will need, that you have a bathroom with a shower, sink, toilet, that you can go to a bedroom where you can sleep and be able to navigate comfortably on that main level. You don't ever want to have a situation where you have to go up and down steps if you have limited mobility. So in-home care, there's a lot that goes into that to make sure that you're able to get the appropriate care that you need. And then there are some assisted living facilities where you can, you know, in the beginning stages of long-term care, you can start to receive some early assistance from caretakers. Now, the good thing with the assisted living facilities, a lot of them are like apartments. They don't look like nursing homes. They're not sterile, you know, they don't look like hospitals. They look like apartments. They're furnished comfortably. You have a bit more comfortability there. And the good thing is that they are on one level. So wherever your room is or your apartment is, it's one level. You're not going to be on a multi-level apartment or unit. And you have the ability to scale up or down the level of care and assistance that you would need. And so you can go in, and as your health progressively gets worse, you can get additional help. And as your needs start to increase, meaning that you need to get more assistance, then a consideration for you might be going into a nursing home where you would be able to get skilled care services. And so that's everything from caretakers being able to get you out of bed, nurses being able to give you medication, and also making sure that they're checking to see that you're eating, checking to make sure that you know your weight is okay, your health vitals and all those things are stable. All of that is important as your health continues to decline. And then, you know, there's some adult daycare centers, but that's for individuals who have minimal care needs. Individuals who may need, you know, little supervision, little assistance with care. those adult daycare centers are in every community. It's a great way to connect and associate with other people in your community, so you don't feel isolated. And so there's different levels of care that you want to consider, and so it's important that you talk with family, talk with your medical professionals, and talk with an attorney to figure out, where you are in that level of care hierarchy. All right, let's go to the next slide, please. So the average cost of long-term care is expensive. And so there are different ways that you can pay for long-term care. You can either pay for long-term care with long-term care insurance if you have it. And so that insurance will allow you to be able to pay a certain daily rate. And if your daily rate that the long-term care insurance that you have, whether it's for a nursing home or in-home care, if there is a difference between what the long-term care insurance will pay and what the actual cost is, you will have to come up with the difference out of your own money. And so just looking at some of the numbers on the screen, you can read the numbers on the screen. If you're in a private room, the median annual cost of a private room in a nursing home is $105,850 for the year, right? So when you calculate that on a monthly basis, and I'm going to pull my calculator out, and we'll see exactly what that amounts to on a monthly basis. So 105,850 divided by 12, that's $8,820 a month, right? That's actually on the low end. And so think about where you're going to come up with $8,820 to pay, for a private room in a nursing home. If you don't have long-term care insurance, your money is going to get depleted very quickly. If you're at an assisted living facility, and keep in mind, at an assisted living facility, your care needs are not as serious as it would be for someone at a nursing home. So the cost at an assisted living is cheaper than going to a nursing home. So the assisted living facility average is about $51,600 a year. And so when we look at that on a monthly basis, we're looking at roughly about $4,300. That's a bit more manageable, right? And so if you start to see your health decline, assisted living may be the appropriate living arrangement for you. And so that's something that it's not going to be an extreme shock to your bank account, but it is a significant cost, not as significant as going to a nursing home. And if you have a home health aide come into your home, the average cost is going to be just under $55,000 for the year. And so you get the benefit of getting care at home. And when we look at the monthly costs for having a home health aide come into your home, you're looking at $4,583, right, on the average. So about $4,600 a month, comparable to what you would see in assisted living. And there's a lot of studies that say that individuals that get care at home end up doing better. They thrive, much better. They have a familiarity of their surrounding. They have family members that can come in and out, and all of that helps with their long-term care prognosis. All right, next slide, please. So what role does Medicaid planning play in long-term care? right? So we just saw some numbers about how much it costs to get care at different facilities. When we look at how you pay for these long-term care costs, long-term care insurance, paying privately, if you don't have long-term care insurance and you start to run out of money paying privately, then you have to consider Medicaid. And so Medicaid is the government assistance, and Medicaid is a big program. It's a federal program, but also there are state-specific regulations on Medicaid. And so Medicaid can cover everything from health insurance to long-term care. And for today's purposes, we're going to talk about long-term care. So with Medicaid will kick in when you've run out of money and there's no long-term care insurance that you have. So Medicaid will pay a lesser rate to a nursing home, or if you qualify for care at home, to the caretaking company that comes in and provides care for you. And so there's opportunities within the Medicaid regulations that allow for individuals to do some pre-planning. And the pre-planning is that you look to protect and preserve some of your assets and some of your property, so that they are excluded from being counted as assets for the purposes of Medicaid. Because the way Medicaid works, Medicaid is going to look at two things, actually look at three things. The first thing is they want to make sure, the government wants to make sure they understand your care needs, your health. So they will do an assessment to make sure that the level of care that you need is on the high level, meaning skilled care. And once they determine that you need skilled care, they will then look to see what your income is and what your assets are, right? And in Pennsylvania, if you're single and you have income less than $2,829, if it's less than $2,829, your monthly income from all sources, the government will allow you to keep $2,400, and they will allow you to keep an additional $5,600. So bringing you up to $8,000 total that they will allow you to keep if your income is below $2,829 a month in Medicaid, right? Now, so if your income is less than $2,829, that $8,000 that you're able to keep, if you've got assets that are greater than $8,000, you have to spend that money down, right, before you will be eligible for Medicaid. But in planning ahead, you can protect those assets, right? And you can sit down with me in my office. I'll walk you through how you can protect those assets and that property, so that if you have more than $8,000 and you earn less than $2,829 a month, that you can protect those assets over $8,000, and you would not have to spend it down. You would not have to pay the nursing home those assets. And so there are strict Medicaid regulations on how you can do that. And so once you go through a planning strategy with our firm and we set up a plan so that you can protect those assets, when the time comes that you should need Medicaid, or when you should need long-term care, we can look at your situation at that time and theoretically get you into a nursing home or get you caretakers that are coming to your home to help with your long-term care needs and get you qualified for Medicaid at an early stage without you having to spend all of your assets down. And so let's read the stats. Medicaid covers 62% of all long-term care services, making it the largest source of funding for these services in the United States. So just imagine that 62% of all long-term care services are paid for by Medicaid. So Medicaid plays an enormous role in how long-term care is paid for. Next slide, please. And Medicaid eligibility is important to understand. So we talked a little bit about the income, right? The income of $2,829. So every year that number changes. For 2024, that number is $2,829. So if you earn less than $2,800, you can qualify for Medicaid as long as you have less than $8,000 of countable resources or assets. If you earn more than $2,829, what you're allowed to keep is less. You're allowed to keep $2,400, and that's for 2024. Numbers can change next year. And if you need to know what the numbers will be next year, just reach out to our office in January and we'll be happy to provide you those numbers. So making sure that your health needs require skilled care, and skilled care is another way of saying that you need nursing home level care. Determining where you are in terms of your income of $2,829. And then looking at your assets, making sure, are you below the $8,000 threshold or, at the 2,400 level threshold. And, the information, changes, when you're married. So for married individuals, a husband and wife can keep a maximum of $154,140 in assets, right? So if the wife needs to go into a nursing home, their combined assets, how much money they have, the value of the property that they have, excluding the house, right? And we'll tell you why the house is excluded in a little while. But the couple are able to keep $154,140 in combined assets, right? And some of the common misconceptions are that individuals, have to spend every last dime, every last penny before they are eligible. But keep in mind what I just shared with you. With the proper planning ahead, you can protect the property and assets that you have so that you don't have to worry about spending every last penny in order to qualify for Medicaid. That planning is important, okay? Let's go to the next slide, please. Eligibility for Medicaid. We talked about income and asset limits in Pennsylvania, and the medical criteria. You need to be able to utilize skilled care, nursing home level care, and then you would fill out an application to be assessed and determine whether you qualify for Medicaid. That's something our office does on a regular basis. We can help you with that Medicaid application and make sure that you're getting approved much quicker and not have to go through a denial process. Next slide, please. So you have the next slide up. Common misconceptions and pitfalls in applying for Medicaid. So let's read one of the misconceptions here. Many believe that Medicaid is only available to those with no assets, but various planning strategies can help middle-class individuals qualify. Or rather, the misconception is that Medicaid is only for the impoverished. No, it's not only for the impoverished. So with proper planning, we can have middle-class individuals protect their property and protect their assets and still qualify for Medicaid. And the truth, Medicaid planning can involve legal and financial tactics to preserve assets while meeting eligibility requirements. And so remember, I had mentioned a little while ago that your house, your primary house, right? So the primary house, Medicaid regulation says that that's exempt. So that's something that in your Medicaid application, you have to make sure that when you're completing that application, you check the box that you intend to return home. Because if you check the box that you intend to return home, if you're going into a nursing home, then that house stays protected. You don't have to sell it. You don't have to take out an equity line of credit, a reverse mortgage, or anything of the sort in order to pay for your care costs at a nursing home. And then obviously, if you're getting care at home, you wouldn't have to sell the house. Next slide, please. And some of the common misconceptions and pitfalls in applying for Medicaid. Misconception: Medicare covers long-term care. So that's a misconception. Medicare will provide up to about 20 days of care, in rehab, right? They want to, if you come out of the hospital and you go into rehab, Medicare will cover up to that first 20 days at 100% of care, right? But they want to make sure that you're showing signs that you're improving, that you're rehabilitating. But after that, Medicare has no obligation to pay for your long-term care needs or your long-term care costs. And oftentimes what we see is that individuals will go from the hospital to rehab, when rehab can be at a long-term care facility, and they may end up staying there if they are not showing signs of improvement. And at that point, that's when they would have to pay for the cost of long-term care. And as the truth says there, Medicare primarily covers short-term rehabilitation and medical care after hospital stays. So anything on a long-term basis, you're looking at using long-term care insurance, paying privately, or Medicaid. And next slide, please. Just continuing with the common misconceptions and pitfalls in applying for Medicaid. One of the pitfalls, ignoring the look-back period. So let's talk a little bit about the look-back period. So many of you might know about the look-back period. Look-back period is 5 years, right? What does that mean? It means that when you make an application for Medicaid, the county that you're applying for Medicaid is going to look back 5 years into your past to see what kind of expenditures you had. They are going to request 5 years of financial information from your banks, your financial institutions, and they're going to go through it with a fine-tooth comb. They want to see if you have gifted, if you gave away money, gave away property, and anything over $500 is going to spark an interest in them, and they're going to look deeper. So you cannot ignore that look back period, because if in that 5-year period, right, you gave away money, gifts, anything that you own for less than fair market value, that's going to impact your eligibility for Medicaid. You may be denied. Your application for Medicaid may be denied because if you gave away gifts, and people will come into my office and they'll say, well, I was reading online that, I can give, money to my kids, right? And so while you can gift money to your kids, Medicaid, if they see that you have gifted more than $500 to any one person in any one month, that's going to be a trigger for them to look deeper and to disqualify you, right? So all the information that you get online is not true, right? So again, sitting down with someone like myself or an attorney, an elder law attorney, we can tell you exactly how you can protect your assets, your property, how you can leave something to your family, to your children, to your loved ones. But you've got to be very aware of that look back period. And that 5 years, and it's 5 years prior to the date that you file your Medicaid application, that the government is looking back to see what you've given away. And if you did the planning right, as they look back in that 5 years, they're not going to see anything that would deny you, right? In fact, they will see that your history, your 5-year history is clear, and you're more likely to get approved for Medicaid. So as the truth says, transfers within the 5-year period can lead to penalties and delayed eligibility, making early planning crucial. Next slide, please. Another common misconception in applying for Medicaid, delaying the application process. All right, so that's not a good idea. You don't want to delay the application process. The application process is complicated. There's a lot of factors that need to be considered, at the time you apply for Medicaid. And that's why it's important to understand what the county is looking for, what the government is looking for. And by understanding that, you're able to plan appropriately, and you're able to provide and complete the application process in a effective and efficient way. And let's look at the truth. Starting the application process early and consulting with an experienced elder law attorney can help avoid unnecessary delays and ensure timely coverage. And that's important. You need coverage, you need the care. And oftentimes when we see people delay doing the application process, we see that the nursing homes become aggressive, and oftentimes they may file a claim in court to either get the individual that's receiving care to move quicker to get an application filed, or if that individual doesn't have the capacity or the ability to do that application, they may even look to have a guardian appointed to be able to make those decisions for that individual. So you don't want to delay with this. Next slide, please. So let's talk a little bit about some strategies for asset protection. Some of the legal tools that you can utilize. Let's move to the next slide. Thank you. The main legal tool that we use for protecting your property and assets for Medicaid is the irrevocable trust. That irrevocable trust, that's like the Fort Knox of protecting your property and assets, right? But with the opportunity, right, to protect your property in this way, there comes some limitations. The irrevocable trust, as it sounds, is not easy to change or to undo, right? So once you set up an irrevocable trust, and let's talk about what a trust is. A trust is a agreement between the individual that's creating the trust and the trustee, the person who is managing that trust and carrying out the wishes of the individual that's creating the trust. And in that agreement, in that trust, you have to fund it. You have to put things into it, right? So think of the trust as a box, and you have to put things into the box. So the things that you put into that trust, and in this case, the irrevocable trust, are the things that you want to protect. But those things have to stay in that irrevocable trust for 5 years. And why does it have to stay in there for 5 years? Because we have a 5-year look back period. And that 5-year look back period is important because the earlier you start your planning and you put that irrevocable trust in place, the sooner you're able to get past your 5-year look back period. And once that property is in that irrevocable trust for 5 years and 1 day, you are protected. Nursing home doesn't have the authority to tell you to sell the property or the assets that are in there. They don't have the authority to tell you to take it out if it's done correctly, right? Medicaid regulations are very complex. So this isn't a situation where it's a DIY or even going online and trying to do it with one of these online providers. You have to use very specific language. You have to understand the Medicaid regulations, and you have to understand how to properly fund that trust. And then we look at another legal tool, which is life estates. So life estate is if you own a property, you can transfer that property to another individual. Say, for instance, you want to transfer that property to your child, and you want to remain in that house for the rest of your life so that your child can't kick you out, right? That's what's called a life estate. You have the right to stay in that house until you pass away, and upon your death, your child gets that house, right? Life estates are protected under Medicaid regulations, and they allow you to qualify for Medicaid, when you file a Medicaid application, okay? Spousal transfers and spousal refusals. So let's talk about spousal transfers, right? So in Pennsylvania, we talked to you about the $154,140, right? In terms of the max that a couple can have in joint assets. So let's say that the wife has to go into a nursing home, and the husband, is staying at home, but, they have joint assets of about, let's say, $50,000. And the wife has individual assets of about another $45,000, right? And the husband, he has, his assets, he probably has, let's say, another 50,000, right? So remember, the spouse that's going into the nursing home is the individual that the nursing home is going to look at in terms of whether her money has to be spent down, or whether she qualifies in having, whether it's below $8,000 or $2,400, depending on income, in assets. But in this case, the wife has $45,000 in her name, and jointly they have $50,000. But, we've got a maximum exclusion of $154,140, right? That can be excluded. So the wife can transfer her $45,000 to the husband, and her $45,000 added to their joint $50,000 gets you $95,000. That $95,000 in joint assets are much less than the $154,140. And Medicaid allows for the spouse to do that, right? And so benefit of being married and applying for Medicaid. Then that's planning that we can do ahead of time. And sometimes people come to us when they have an emergency, right? The spouse or the parent has to go into a nursing home like tomorrow. And so they don't have the time to do the planning as thoroughly as they would like. So we have to do what's called triage, right? And so we look to protect as much of the property and assets as possible. And that's where using a Medicaid compliant annuity can help. The way a Medicaid compliant annuity works is that annuity is set up by a company that handles those type of annuities on a regular basis. They understand the complexities and the regulations. You can't just go to any insurance company. It has to be a specific company that handles Medicaid compliant annuities. And oftentimes these companies only work with attorneys because of the complexity that's involved. And you set this Medicaid compliant annuity up so that it's based on your age, and they have this table that calculates your life expectancy. And so this annuity pays out over a certain amount of time. But what happens is there's another percentage of the annuity that can be transferred to your spouse or your children, and it's protected. The part that's transferred to your spouse or your children is protected from Medicaid or nursing home. And so only the portion that is paid out to you on a monthly basis over a period of time, that amount that's paid to you, whether that's 50% of the assets that you have or a larger number, the Medicaid annuity calculation table dictates what that number is. That amount that's paid out to you on a monthly basis goes to the nursing home to provide for your care. And those are some of the legal tools and techniques for asset protection. Next slide, please. The importance of trusts and how they function in Medicaid planning. We talked a little bit, next slide, please. We talked a little bit about the irrevocable trusts, and that's a key tool in your Medicaid planning toolbox. And the other thing to remember about irrevocable trusts, when you put the property or assets into the trust, you can't take them out, right? That's the agreement that you make to get this protection. You're getting this protection, it's protecting all of your property and assets, but when you put that property in, you cannot take it out, right? What you can do is that if you have investments, right? If you have money that you're investing and you put that money into an irrevocable trust and you invest it in Vanguard stocks, but you're getting, the interest from that investment, that interest is considered income, and you can utilize that income, and you can take the income out of the trust, but the money that you put in cannot be taken out. So if you put $1,000 in, you cannot take that $1,000 out. The income that $1,000 generates, if you're getting 8% interest, that 8% interest that you're generating, you can pull that out, but the $1,000 stays in. Okay, that's the trade-off with the irrevocable trust. And the stat here says that approximately 68% of American adults do not have a will or an estate plan. That is a striking number. Every time I look at it, I cringe, because that is a lot of people staying unprotected. Imagine, driving, on a highway without a seatbelt, right? Imagine driving your vehicle without insurance. Imagine your house without insurance, right? And any catastrophic event can happen. And when that happens and you're not protected, you lose so much. And the thing with estate planning, whether you're having a will or a trust or any variation of the estate planning documents, if you are unprotected, it's not only affecting you, it's affecting your loved ones, your family, your children, your spouse. And so, that's important. And everyone has to, take the initiative to really plan, to protect themselves, their property, and their loved ones. Next slide, please. Now, special needs trusts. Special needs trusts can be utilized for individuals that need, higher level of care. And so special needs trusts can play a role in protecting a individual who has to go into a nursing home if they have a special needs child, right? That special needs trust can protect that child, so that there's money available for that adult child to be able to live, right? And that adult child is probably getting some government benefits, and those government benefits will be affected if that individual gets money outright, meaning money distributed to them directly. So those special needs trusts can help supplement the care that that individual is receiving. And let's read the stats. Approximately 70% of families with a special needs child have not established a special needs trust. And again, it goes back to protecting your family and not leaving them exposed. Next slide, please. Just talk a little bit about the look back period and penalty period. Next slide, please. We talked a little bit about this earlier. The look back period is 5 years. Many years ago, it used to be 3 years, but currently it's 5 years, full 60 months, and it is triggered by the date of the Medicaid application and going back 5 years to determine whether you have given away money or property. Next slide, please. So what is scrutinized? Medicaid will review all financial transactions, gifts, transfers, anything monetarily involved. They will review it. If you gave away a gift, if you transferred property, if you sold something for less than fair market value, those are things that are going to be scrutinized, and they're going to want to make sure that you didn't give things away. And the truth is, common transactions scrutinized include transferring property to family members, large cash gifts, and setting up certain types of trusts, right? So remember, the only trust that's going to protect your property and assets is the irrevocable trust. The revocable trust will not protect your property. Next slide, please. And so the penalties for violations, if you transferred or you made a gift for less than fair market value, your application, your Medicaid application can be denied. You could receive a period where you would be ineligible to receive Medicaid. And, that period can last from 1 day to a number of months, depending on how much money and property you have given away. And if you're ineligible during that time period, you've got to figure out how you're going to pay for Medicaid, because if you don't have money to pay for Medicaid, you don't have long-term care insurance, and you're in a period where you're disqualified, meaning that you can't get Medicaid, you're in a very tough position. And so with proper planning, we can make sure that you're not facing that situation, because you're going to have to lean on family members to help, pay for your care costs. So let's look at the truth, right? The length of the penalty is determined by dividing the total amount of transferred assets by the average monthly cost of nursing home care in the state. So that's the math in terms of how they calculate it. And if you come into our office, we can show you how that calculation is done. And oftentimes where we see that we have to do this calculation is where we have to do the triage, meaning that we have to, go into Medicaid protection mode for an individual that needs to go into a nursing home the next day. Next slide, please. How transfers of assets can affect Medicaid eligibility. So gifts and donations, any of these really, selling assets below market value, setting up an irrevocable trust improperly, or doing it where the property is not in the irrevocable trust for more than 5 years. So if you set up an irrevocable trust and you need to utilize Medicaid, or you need to go into a nursing home within 3 years of setting up that irrevocable trust, that's going to affect your eligibility for Medicaid, because you haven't let the property in that irrevocable trust sit there for 5 years or more. And transferring property for less than fair market value is going to affect your Medicaid eligibility. So all of these things have the potential for affecting your Medicaid eligibility. Next slide, please. Planning techniques to avoid penalties. Definitely you want to make sure that you plan early. So part of the process of planning early, talking with your family, talking with your medical providers, talking with an elder law attorney to make sure that we're looking at your health and your financial planning to make sure that you're going to be protected. Establishing the irrevocable trust, doing it the right way, not a DIY step that you can take. And gifting strategically, right? So we want to make sure that if we're going to give somebody something, that we don't exceed that $500 for any individual in any month, right? Really what it is, you don't want to exceed gifting more than $500 in any month, because if you do that, you're going to show up on the radar for the county that's looking at your Medicaid application. Prepaying for certain care and services are important. We can talk to you about which services and which prepayments make sense. And obviously consulting with an elder law attorney is important, just so you have the full facts and you have the complete understanding of how to plan for this. Next slide, please. So what worries you most about planning for long-term care? Let's look at this.
Yeah, so we're going to have a poll for that one, and I'm going to launch that right now, and it should pop up on your screen. So just take a moment to think about it and, answer when you feel.
And let's just, while you're filling out that poll, look at the stats. Nearly 70% of people over the age of 65 will require some form of long-term care during their lifetime. Striking stat. How's folks doing on the poll?
Oh yeah, we have about half of the team. We just got half there.
All right.
And let's give it about 20 more seconds or so.
Yeah. And, there's a lot of unknown about the future. And so, the most important thing that you want to think about with planning is that you put yourself in a position so that even if the worst situation happens to you, there's a plan on how your loved ones will be protected, how your property will be distributed, and also making sure that you're taken care of, right? So we control what we can control, and try to minimize the uncertainties. How are we with the poll?
All right, I'm going to go ahead and share it now. And there you guys go. So most voted for paying for care. That is important.
Yeah. The biggest thing that worries most folks. And the second is dealing with paperwork and rules. But paying for care, that's the biggest issue, right? Because we don't want to be in a situation where we can't pay for care that we need. And so, we can show you how to, plan for that and make sure that that's not a concern or a worry for you. And also dealing with paperwork and rules. We look at those paperwork and those regulations on a daily basis. So, that's information that we have available to us on a regular basis, and we become experts in this area. So we're able to, share our knowledge with you. When and how to get started in planning. Next slide, please. It's never too early to start thinking about planning. And Jay, if you can go to the next slide, thanks. I would tell you, start today. By the fact that you're on this webinar shows that you have an interest in improving your life, improving the life of your loved ones, and making sure that you can plan, to protect your family and to protect your property. And let's look at the stats. Falls are the leading cause of injury among older adults. So slipping and falling. With 1 in 4 Americans aged 65 or older falling each year, these falls often lead to a sudden need for long-term care. And so, that's reality, right? And so a simple fall or an injury can put an individual, in a really bad situation where they're not able to recover the way that they were before the injury, right? And so that can lead to long-term care needs and assistance that individual would need. Let's go to the next slide, please. Timeline for long-term care planning. 5 years before needing care, 5 or more years at minimum. You want to make sure that you plan as early as possible. The initial planning, financial review and early transfers, those are things that you want to do, more than 5 years, before you need long-term care. And if you're in that, 3 to 5 year window of needing care, you still want to do some planning. And worst case scenario, if you need the care before, the 5 years, expires in the look back period, we can look at, triage, that we can do to plan for Medicaid or nursing home care, within, a short period of time, a short window. And same thing within 1 to 3 years. Individuals, in that situation, you want to do some emergency Medicaid planning, and really that's looking at the Medicaid annuity and looking at other options that may be available to preserve or decrease the amount of assets that you have to spend down. How to work with an attorney to create a tailored Medicaid plan. So as I mentioned, you come into our office. Jay, if you can go to the next slide, please. You come into our office, we'll have a strategy session. And, in that strategy session, we'll assess your situation, work with you to develop a concrete strategy to help you. And, you'll play an important role in how we implement that plan. And we always allow individuals the opportunity to allow us to monitor them on an ongoing basis and monitor their plan. And so those are steps that we take to make sure that if there's changes in your life in the future, that we can, plan and address those needs right away. And when the time comes, if you need to do a Medicaid application, we're here to do that application the right way for you and get you approved. Next slide, please. So a little bit about our firm. We serve Pennsylvania, New Jersey. Every client that comes in, it's a unique experience. No two clients are alike. Every client has a different, unique set of circumstances. So you're not going to see two clients that have the same strategy in how we approach the planning. So that's why it's important for us to really get to know you, get to know your background, your history, medical, financial, your family. All of those things go into developing your unique, tailored strategy. We have over 30 years of combined expert and experience in estate work, estate planning, administration, Medicaid planning, and guardianships. And we have a proven track record. I mean, just look at our Google reviews, look at what people are saying. We have 75 Google reviews. Overwhelming majority of those reviews are 5-star reviews, satisfied customers, people that value the work that we provide and the service that we provide. We always make sure that we provide more service than what you're paying for. So even though you may cringe, at having to pay, for the legal services, at the end of the day, when you reflect back on what it is that you're getting, you feel as though you've gotten more value than what you paid for. And that's where we want to, make sure clients are. We continue to talk with clients even after we've finished, representing them and helping them in their case, because things come up from time to time. And with our firm, you're really going to get a unique, customized, hands-on approach to navigating the law. Next slide, please. And I told you about our Google reviews. Our reputation is unmatched. There's not a firm in the area that's doing what we're doing, the way that we do it, the value that we place on our clients. We are a client-centric firm, and everything that we do is to make the lives of our clients better. Because when you're coming to us, you're coming to us, in your time of need, when you have serious questions and even going through some serious pain. And so we don't take that lightly. We take that seriously. And there's no other firm out here that's doing the level of service that we do and the way that we represent and serve our clients. Next slide, please. So this is our question session.
Yeah, now it's time for our Q&A session. We have quite a few questions in here, so I'll just read them off to you one by one. And some of them came from the beginning, and we might have to tap back into a few topics that you did talk about, but I'll start with number one. All right, so Randy asked, how many hours or days per week does that income hair figure represent? And I think that's in regards to the home health aid, being in home. The number that we talked about with the price, I believe that was around 55,000.
Right.
Hours a day, days per week.
Yeah, something like that would probably be along the lines of probably 5 to 8 hours a day. It's not a lot. When you go for around the clock care, that price goes up significantly. So that 55,000 a year is somewhere in the neighborhood of about 5 to 8 hours a day.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Another question that we had here from Mary, she asks, what about single individuals? How much of their assets are protected? I know you tapped into couples, so speak on a little bit more about single individuals.
Yeah, so for single individuals, that's where we look at the $2,829, right? If you have income that's less than $2,829, only $8,000 is protected. If you have an income that's greater than $2,829, you can only protect up to $2,400. So it doesn't pay to be single when it comes to Medicaid.
All right, thank you for that. The next one I have here is it beneficial to change from private insurance to Medicare, Medicaid?
So that's a question that you really have to look at the numbers. That's a great question, right? So some insurance, life insurance have the ability to convert that policy into a long-term care policy. And so what you've got to do is you've got to sit down with someone from the company where you have your life insurance and run the numbers, right? Because each company is going to be different and there's a number of factors that go into it. If you don't have a financial advisor or someone that you can run the numbers with, reach out to me. We'll give you the names of some excellent financial advisors that you can sit down with.
Alrighty. Another one I have here is, if a husband is establishing a pooled special needs trust, how much cash can he and family, wife and infant child, keep in bank as savings? Is that too specific, or could you give a general answer?
So if you have a pooled special needs trust, are you asking how much can you keep in the pooled special needs trust?
How much to keep in the bank as savings? How much to save?
Outside of the trust?
It seems like a yes.
That's going to come down, and if we're talking about qualifying for Medicaid, it's going to come down to, if you're married, then, you've got the $154,140 in combined assets that you can keep, jointly, right? The pooled special needs trust will exclude money from Medicaid and from the nursing home. But in terms of what you can keep in savings jointly, in order to be protected, it cannot exceed the $154,140. And that's for 2024.
Alrighty. And I have another one here. I have Medicare and Medicaid now. How will an inheritance affect me getting benefits?
Oh, so you're going to inherit money. You've got Medicare and Medicaid. So if you so if you have Medicaid right now, what you want to make sure is that before you accept that inheritance, you sit down and you talk with an elder law or estate planning attorney, because that's going to be very specific, right? We want to see what the inheritance is, how much that is, and also we want to see what kind of Medicaid coverage, whether you're getting health insurance through Medicaid, or are you receiving, some long-term care services for Medicaid. So that's a specific question that we can talk, once we get some more information on your case.
Another person asks about revocable trusts. Can a revocable trust be converted to an irrevocable trust based on the person's request?
It can, but what's going to happen is that if you have language in there to convert a revocable trust to an irrevocable trust, kind of like a triggering event or some circumstance, you've got to be cognizant of when it's going to start that 5-year look back clock, when it starts, right? Because that triggering event, you don't want it to happen too late. And so you want to have some control in place to have that irrevocable trust set up with enough time to exceed that 5-year look back period so that your property and assets are protected.
Okay, thank you. And someone had asked the average cost for our services, but I would say the best thing is to first do that one-on-one strategy session to find out the best way to help you. So there really isn't an average cost because, like we said, everybody is unique and no two clients are the same. So that would be my best answer for that one.
Yeah, just reach out to us. Let's have a conversation, and we can be very specific with you, and tell you exactly, what, the type of services that you're looking for would cost.
Alrighty. And I believe that was pretty much it, I think. Does anyone else have any other? I'm just going through them real quickly just to make sure I tapped into everything. Someone did ask, what is the typical process for the Medicaid spend down in order to qualify? But I believe we probably tapped into that earlier, so it would be best to see that on the replay. So because we did go in depth into that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's Medicaid spend down, there's a number of different approaches that we can take based on what property and assets you have. But we look at that. We look at what the amount of assets that you need to spend down. And, we can, look at medical bills. We can look at home repairs. We can look at a number of different things that we can give you advice on what to spend down on.
There is two more. This one's important. Do you stand as a trustee for individuals in implementing a will?
Yeah, I do. I am trustee for a number of clients, executor for a number of clients. And so that's something that we can talk about if you need me or my office to be in that position for you.
And last one, can an investment account be protected in a trust?
Yes, as long as it's not a retirement account. Retirement accounts, they have to be tied to an individual. And so we can't put retirement accounts into a trust. But based on your age and whether you're doing required minimum distributions, it may be advantageous for certain individuals to liquidate that retirement money, and they can put it into the trust.
Alrighty. Okay. I'm going to we're going to send something to you guys to do a review. Just to let us know how did we do on our first webinar. I believe Attorney Powell gave us a lot of information, and thank you for your questions. They were really good questions. And that's promised. The replay for this webinar will be sent to you so you can share it with your family or just rewatch for any notes that you took. We want to send you a link, and give me one moment here.
Yeah, and if everyone can open up their chat, Jay is going to send that link in the chat. And we love 5-star reviews. Like I said, we love to give more value than what you planned for or what you paid for. And it's our hope that you got a tremendous amount of value in this presentation today. We have a number of presentations on tap for the rest of the year and into 2025. I can't believe I'm saying 2025, but we got there's a lot of information we want to share with you, and we appreciate your responses and how we do. And like I said, we love 5-star reviews. And if you look at the chat, you should see the link in there from Jay.
Yeah, sorry, it took me a while to find that. I'm sorry. And right. The other link that we want to give to you guys is, like we said, share the knowledge. So the replay is going to be sent to you. And because of the fact that you were able to sit down with us for this webinar, we do have a sit-down free evaluation for you guys. So you'll get some emails on that. And we also want you to register for our next month's webinar, and I'm going to drop that to you guys as well.
Yeah, yeah, so keep the chat open so you can receive this information and share it with other people, right? So copy it, share it, and the free evaluation, that's big, right? And so individuals that sign up for that, you get to just ask me questions, right? And get specific strategy and specific analysis of how your life can be improved with proper planning. And so that one, it's a free evaluation and opportunity to do a case strategy with me. And it's priceless, that opportunity to make a difference in your and your family's life.
All righty. Well, we thank you guys for joining us today, and hopefully everyone have a good evening and have a great day. Bye.
All right. Thanks, everyone.